What is it she wants to tell me? And why do I return to this window?
The Door Behind the Curtain is the first Iranian contemporary opera, or certain chamber opera with an English libretto, and it was not an easy task to compose it in a country where music and drama has a long story. It also has an old message that man must recognize his action and the consequences, which can sometimes be destructive to him and the others.
The Door Behind the Curtain is based on the great short story by the great Iranian writer Sadegh Hedayat. Hedayat was a modernist, writing in the 1930s, rather uniquely an Iranian modernist. And the story that he's written, The Door Behind the Curtain, is the story of a young man, a young Iranian student, who falls in love with a mannequin he sees in a shop window. That is not an entirely original idea. It's been done before. It's a familiar idea in Western culture. What Hedayat does with it is something quite unique. He is really writing about a state of consciousness which he sees as the future. And it's the state of exile. You have a young man who's an innocent, who is a rather uptight Iranian in France, in Le Havre. He's someone who is an outsider there, who cannot cross the cultural barriers. And he falls in love with an inanimate object. And he takes the inanimate object home with him, and that continues a state of exile. He is an exile in his own country, exiled by the experience he has, the secret he carries with him. This is something that Hedayat, I think, really is offering as a kind of prediction for the world we live in now. The sense of strangeness, the sense that we are constantly relocating and constantly at odds with new cultures. It's a narrative that's very familiar to us now. And Hedayat exploits it quite brilliantly in a story that I think is closer in tone to Kafka.
Since 2009, I researched for a plot which was suitable both in length and complexity, which could also reflect my music, and consulting with different scholars. I was very fascinated by The Door Behind the Curtain by Hedayat, which brings the two cultures together and the tone between the modernity and tradition. The main motive of the opera are two semitones actually, and there's a fifth between, which is the empty. The first semitone reflects the hope and the longing for peace, and the next semitones is kind of depression and lost.
Yes?
I saw something in your window.
Grandfather!
Monsieur, how can we help you? Don't let the gentleman to stand. A chair, girl, fetch him a chair.
I think the difficult part of composing this opera to think that it was placed in two different countries, and I had to bring these two countries together, and so I had to flavor really in the first act of being in Le Havre, and there was a bit of French music really, and how would I put that into a contemporary context? And then we were traveling from Le Havre to Tehran, which is a long way, and coming to Tehran where we needed some bit of Eastern flavor really. But the story, as I thought, from beginning to the end, it applies to a global issue rather than and the exotic side of the story.
The story, The Door Behind the Curtain, is one of those classic tales. It's all about human emotions of obsession, love, despair, and there's a real tragedy. And the music reflects this brilliantly. It melds brilliant senses of modern contemporary repertoire with hints of Persian themes, certainly in these beautiful long elaborate lines that Amir weaves through the musical structure.
The opera is composed for 11 musicians. There's a harp, and the harp is actually the main character of the whole opera, so the harp plays from the beginning to the end. And there are 6 singers and ballet dancer who portrays the doll. Now, I have really tried to avoid any exotic flavors of either Western or Eastern music, but putting everything to a new context in terms of drama and music as it should be.
Every secret has its secrets. Pockets are
Well, my music reflects lots of different culture and perspective from different areas because I grew up in Denmark, then I came to England, and originally I was Iranian. I have all the 3 cultures in my background.
If there is one single moment of joy before infinity.
Well, I enjoy unresolved ending and the shift from rationalism to mysticism. This opera is based on new ideas, and this is the first Iranian chamber contemporary opera with an English libretto. And I want today's Iran and that hunger of new music come out. I have become increasingly interested in unresolved music, and that is probably why I liked Hedayat and The Door Behind the Curtain so much.